go. Go. Good afternoon. Today I'm out scouting one of my favorite areas, and I'm looking for subtle overlooked beds that are overlooked by most hunters. So there's not a lot of sign here. However, I did push some deer out on the way in. They were bedded in this thicket behind me. And this is a very subtle bed. You can see where the leaves are all matted down here. And I looked on the ground very closely, and I was able to pull some small white hairs out of this used bed. It's not a major bedding area. It's not a major bed, but it's a bed that's used at some point. And there are only 2 rubs that leave this bed going in that direction. I did some further scouting, and I followed this trail down this point and where it drops down and then it goes horizontally, and looking for more bedding areas. And I found another big bed which has more hair in it. It looks like it's used a lot more. That probably will be a better one to gravitate towards. Well, I'm looking for overlooked areas that a lot of hunters will overlook, and this is one such area. So I'll take you down this trail where it goes vertically down this point, and then it hits the horizontal trail, and then that leads up into an even bigger bed. And then after that, I'm going to scout some more and try to locate an ambush point. Right where I am now, the wind comes from this direction right now. Sometimes it comes from the opposite direction. Sometimes it comes from up there. Sometimes it comes from up here. So with these rolling small hills, it's this great place for a buck to bed and feel protected, because he can just pick up the scent from everywhere. And it's almost impossible to hunt here. This is not an ambush point. It's just a reference for building a possible ambush point in the future. And that ambush point in the future will be linked to this bigger bed with more sign down that way. And I'll show you the rubs that do eventually come into here. So if I set up down there on the bigger bed with more sign, any deer that will come here will pass through that first main bedding on the point, and I'll get a shot at them. So this is just for reference, to put the plan together, to try to start hunting these overlooked areas. And then finally, if I can find a place to drop my last camera and see if I can monitor this area without disturbing it. So that'll be a challenge right there. So, but first things first, we'll link this up to the other bed and start looking for ambush points that will effectively cover both of these areas. Okay, following this trail here, there's some good sign there. That leads to buck rub up here. And actually the trail is going that direction, but I'm gonna go right up to this buck rub here and take a look at it. There's a rub. That's pretty well torn up. There's this thicket above us where they actually, that's where I believe I kicked them out. And then there's a good sized bed or two around here I'll show you. So I am following this trail, which I'll probably get a camera set up on this. Look at the size of that track right there. Look at that. That is a nice track. You can see by the size of my hand. It's a 4-finger track. It's what the boys on the Hunting Beast channel would call, that's a shooter buck. And it's cool because there's an old rub right here. Some old droppings here. Torn up. But we got a buck living in here now. So I will find an ambush spot and I'll find his bed, which I found earlier, and we'll find a place to eventually hopefully set up a camera. So this is the main bedding hub of this buck. There's a satellite beds on this trail as long as I follow it, but this is where it's really beaten down there. Lots of hair, I looked at it, and it links up with that big track I just found. So I'm gonna mark this on my map as where they're going to in the morning and where they're leaving in the evening, and work on the ambush point and trail camera strategy from here. I am on my way to my scouting area, and on the way, this is the second major trail I found that are crossing the road here. It's got active tracks, and it's a really heavily used trail, as you can see. I put my hands here, and these are not really big bug tracks. And even right here, you're looking for a width of about 4 fingers, and they're about 3 fingers. So I'm gonna put this on my map, come back and scout it at some point, but it's not enough for me to get up there and scout it right now because the tracks aren't quite big enough. However, finding big buck tracks is the #1 way that I've found putting myself onto the biggest bucks in the area, because the tracks don't lie. So today is the first day of checking a string of cameras I have in one of my favorite areas. And this area does get hunted hard, especially in the gun season. I did count a half a dozen pickups on the last Saturday of doe season when I was here. And unfortunately, the very first camera that I looked at is missing its SD card. So to give you a perspective on using trail cameras on public land, I have been using them for an entire year, actually more like 15 months, and this is the first time that my camera has been missing its SD card. So all I ask is that if whoever decided they needed to look at it, if you don't mind returning it, you can just open up this camera and just put it in there so that I can see what I missed for the past 4 months. So we'll take it from there, check my next camera and see how that looks. So I actually brought my sticks along today because I thought I might have to climb this tree. So when I got to this spot, I was looking all around for my trail cameras. Couldn't find them, looking all the way up in the trees. And then I looked down, and sure enough, the tree that I set my cameras on, about 8 feet off the ground, the dead tree fell over, and luckily hit this tree here, and it looked like my cameras are okay. So I should get some good pictures all the way up until that storm blew these cameras over with the tree on it. Or rather, the tree came over with the two cameras on it. So as I open up these cards, this first camera, I noticed missing the SD card. So that was obviously pulled out of there. And this one down here, probably missing an SD card. We'll see. This one also missing an SD card. So that changes things. What actually probably happened is somebody just decided to push the tree over to get the cards. So they were up about 8 feet in the air. So that's the third card that's been stolen out of my trail cameras in this area. It lets me know the exact type of hunter that hunts where I hunt. I will continue to hunt here and enjoy this beautiful public land. So today's scouting is, I'm going back to where I found a buck bed 1 year ago, about 10 yards to my left here, and the bed has no fresh sign, so I moved into the thicket here, and the first bed 10 yards away has a lot of hair in it. It's got a white underbelly hair, so I know they're still using this bedding area this time of year, and I'd suspect all times of the year. And I also suspect that it is buck bedding area because the bucks do usually bed a little bit lower, and they bed in areas where people tend to overlook. And but it's thick enough in here that you have to crawl, you have to get down on your hands and knees practically to get in here. That's another thing. It's public land. They're gonna bed in areas that are miserable to get in and out of. So I've got a target location. I know where he's coming from. So in the morning, I'm either gonna set up within an archery shot range of this bed, or I'm gonna find out what his preferred entrance trail is. We're probably gonna go with the former because we know that the deer tend to come into the bedding areas different ways every day depending on exactly how the wind's flowing down the mountain. So I may be very aggressive with this morning sit and sit for one time only, but make sure that I can get a shot as this buck's coming in here for this bed. I'm looking out the direction that the buck would be looking as he's laying in his bed here, and he can see deer or hunters approach this feeding area, which is a mixture of white oaks, red oaks, and chestnut oaks. It's a all-season feeding area because those acorns get eaten at different times of the year, which makes this spot even better. But there's really usually no real obvious trails going into exactly right into the bed, usually not. So I just picked the most logical path through this wood, imagining that I had a big rack and didn't want to mess it up. That's in velvet. And just did a little circle around the bed. And sure enough, look at this. We got the trail in here. And it's down more into the dirt. And here we got a track here. Now, there's our track. There's some tracks there. I'm gonna be setting up so I can shoot on this trail. And I got a couple trees here. There's a couple maple trees there. That one right there in front of me is 10 yards or less. No more than 10 yards. And hunting with a recurve bow, that's what you want, is a 10-yard shot. I'm literally going to be able to shoot into this as a deer coming into bed down here. It's on a little point, and I feel very confident about this spot. And the greatest thing about this is you can hunt this all year. I mean, the only thing is, it's going to be a one-shot deal. So, yeah, I either kill the buck or he detects me. But since this is public land, that's how I'm going to hunt him. So it's May, last week in May, here in 2023, and the temperature today is forecasted to be 80 degrees, and June hasn't even arrived yet, so I'm thinking that this year is going to be really hot and probably dry. So with that being said, I'm at my best water hole here, and I'm going to set up a trail camera, which you can see right here. Last year I set up a trail camera here, and I set it about 3 feet off the ground overlooking this small drainage here. And I got a lot of photographs, but I only got the tips of their ears. And the reason for that is they often walk right down the middle of the drainage itself. Especially I see the bucks doing that even more than the does. So as a result, if you set your camera up like you normally would about this height, you're gonna miss them because they're that low to the ground. They seem to know instinctively that they need to be low, and also very cautious when they come in here because it's just part of their defensive mechanism to know when they're going for water that other predators also need water. All wildlife needs water, so it tends to be a communal place. So I recommend setting up your trail camera only about a foot off the ground, pointing right towards the best crossing where you see the most number of tracks, which is right here. So there are absolutely huge tracks here this year. I mean, I think there's a couple bucks that survived over this past season. And this place gets hunted fairly hard, but once these deer get up there around 3.5 years old and older, they know the game. They know where they need to be to avoid being harvested in the gun season for sure. And a lot of them, as soon as that archery pressure hits, they'll also move to their safe areas. So one of my plans today is to check a camera that's set just outside of a super thick bedding area that is one of their safe areas. In fact, I believe it's their only safe area based on the tracking I did in the snow at the end of the late archery flintlock season in 2023. So I'm anxious to check that camera and see what's on there and find a good tree to hunt from, because I have a feeling that I found their secure area and that they'll retreat back there as the pressure gets on them. So my hunting should get better as the season goes in this particular sanctuary. So next I'll show you some of these tracks because they are nice, and hopefully later I'll show you some of the pictures I get throughout the summer, because they're going to be coming in here probably all times of the day in order to get water for survival reasons. Here are some of the tracks at this water hole I'm pretty excited about. Those right there are huge. They are splayed, and they are definitely bigger than a 4 fingers width across. All 3 of them are. And then following this little water hole drainage system, well, there's another one there. These are decent size, even that's decent size, but check out these. This is the main crossing right here. And these, by the way, these are adult buck and perhaps doe tracks in here. And then they cross this little watering hole here. And there they are. These are adult tracks. They're decent size. And I'm setting up the camera right on this targeted area. See what it produces. And hopefully we'll get some shots of some decent bucks this summer.